In fact, it wasn't until Exhibit 119 at approximately 3:19 p.m. that Jennifer Crumbly mentioned anything to James Crumbly about something going on with Ethan at school.
Correct.
And
Can I ask you to approach for just a
yes, Your
second?
Honor.
Can you turn off the microphone?
All right, let's bring in Michael Jaafar. He's a national trial attorney watching along with us. And Michael, we went through part one with Jennifer. Here we are with James. What are the differences, in your opinion, as we sort of watch this play out for the second time? Mute. Michael's on mute.
He's sorry. My fault, Ted. Sorry. He's cooked. He's getting convicted. 100%, no questions. He's getting convicted. His facts are worse than his wife. The prosecution had a dry run of this case. They got her convicted. I thought the case against her was very weak. She still got convicted. The burden of proof and negligence is very low when somebody dies. It's very, very, very easy to overcome that burden of proof as a prosecution. They don't have to prove that he intentionally murdered anybody. All they have to prove is that he was negligent. Now, this is the second time in the history of our country that this case is being tried. The first time of which it was tried against his wife, his estranged wife, who had better facts than him. He has worser facts than her. And so the human beings in the jury all live in that community. They are all related directly or indirectly to somebody who lost a loved one at that school. And so these people have seen this case on national TV for close to a year now. And they saw that his wife got convicted, and he's the one who bought the gun. His wife didn't. He did. And so he bought the gun. His son did it. The burden of proof is only negligence. I just don't see how he can get out of this. His attorney's doing a really good job, but she's basically just swimming upstream at this point. There's almost nothing any attorney can do to get him out of this situation. And no plea was offered, and so they have to try the case.
Wife Jennifer took the stand. At the end of the day, the jury didn't love her. She had this weird X factor, too, of having the affairs and the swinging, might have tainted some jurors. He doesn't have that. She also was the last one with the gun, last adult in possession with the gun, because she'd gone shooting with Ethan. There's video of that. But his name's on the registration. He bought the gun. They're different facts. Do you throw him up on the stand and try to get him likable, or learn from mom and just stay away?
I didn't think about it till you brought it up, but you're right. Here's the thing. If I was his defense attorney, he would have to take the stand. He would have to take the stand. He'd have to humanize himself, right? The only shot they have, maybe, and this is like a 1% shot, not even a Hail Mary, worse than a Hail Mary, is if the jury sympathizes with him over his wife. That's the only shot. So in order to do that, he has to take the stand, because right now he's just a sitting duck. He's sitting in the courtroom. For all you know, he could be the nicest person in the world, or he could be a demon if you're a juror. You just don't know. If I was a juror, I would want to hear him speak. I've heard his wife speak. I want to hear him speak. I've heard people speak about him. I've heard his wife speak in the courtroom. I want to hear him speak. If I don't hear him speak, and I'm left with the fact that he bought the gun and that the school brought him in and said, we're troubled with your child, and the jury instruction is, do you believe he was negligent? That's it. Do you believe he was negligent? And I haven't heard him speak. Why would I acquit him? I wouldn't do it if I was a juror. I would convict. So yes, he would, and this would be one of the cases where you have to testify in your own defense.
Okay. Yes, yeah, if he does, he has to get the jury into his world where his bossy, cheating wife is the one that was monitoring Ethan, and he was just not even there. So how would he know what's going on? Because she runs the show, which I think there's some truth to when you watch Jennifer's trial play out. It'll be interesting. We'll have to wait and see. Let's get a break here. We'll head.
I mean, we can presume that they're talking about the night before, based on the response to Mrs. Crumbly's text. And if you don't want to presume that, you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I can't, yeah.
So James Crumbly says we talked about it this morning.
That's what he said, yes.
Yes. There was no conversation after that about Mr. Crumbly saying, based on that conversation with his son, that he has concerns.
Correct.
In fact, I believe the next message is, did you talk to him?
That's correct.
We know that on November 30th of 2021, James and Jennifer Crumbly went to Oxford High School.
That's correct.
They met at the school around 10:30 a.m.
A little after that, but yes.
The prosecutor asked you if Mr. Crumbly went to the house before going to the school, and you said no.
Correct.
We know that Mr. Crumbly was at the horse barn. He left there and went directly to the school.
Correct.
And that was based on the exhibit that you looked at yesterday.
That's correct.
On his way there, he spoke to his wife.
Correct.
Mr. Crumbly and his wife met with Sean Hopkins at Oxford High School for approximately 13 minutes.
I think it was a little less than that, but yes.
Their son was in the meeting for about 12 of the 13 minutes.
Yeah, almost 12.
James left the school parking lot at 10:57 a.m.,
Okay.
if you recall.
I don't recall the exact time he left, but it sounds about right because they left the counselor's office before that.
You testified that at 11 a.m., Mr. Crumbly logged into his DoorDash app
That's correct.
from the Meyer parking lot on Ray Road.
Yes.
That his first pickup and delivery was from 11 a.m. to 11:19 a.m., if you recall.
Sounds about right. Yes, correct.
So he left the school and started working right away,
Correct.
within 3 minutes. Is that fair?
Yes, correct.
The prosecutor asked you if he stopped by his house during that first DoorDash, and you said no.
That's correct.
To your knowledge, on November 30th of 2021, from 11 a.m. to 11:19 a.m., Mr. Crumbly didn't have any reason to stop by his house that you know of. That you know of.
If you know, do you know of any reason?
Was he told? I don't understand the. I apologize.
No. Are you aware of any reason that Mr. Crumbly may have known that he needed to go to his house from between 11 to 11:19 on November 30th of 21?
Judge, I think perhaps the better objection would be calling for a legal conclusion because that's central to the theme of the prosecution, that he did have reason to stop him. That's what the jury's being asked to decide.
I guess I don't know how he would know that.
It's based upon his level of knowledge from the last months of the life, Judge. That's what the evidence has shown.
I can move on, Judge.
Thank you,
I
Judge.
just don't know how he would know that.
You identified Exhibit 147 as an email that was sent. Would you like to review it?
I believe that's fine. Thank you.
As an email that was sent from Oxford High School to James Crumbly.
Correct.
That was sent at sometime around 1 p.m.
1:09 p.m. But yes.
That was after, actually, the shooting had ended.
Correct.
In fact, you testified yesterday that the shooting was from 12:51 p.m. to 1300.
Yes, correct.
To 1 o'clock.
Correct. Yes.
That email doesn't show whether or not Mr. Crumbly received it. Is that fair?
That right there doesn't tell me anything other than it was sent to him.
All that tells you is that there was an email sent from the high school to Mr. Crumbly.
Correct.
At that email address.
Correct.
And at that time.
Correct.
You know that from 12:33 p.m. to 1:01 p.m., Mr. Crumbly was on a different DoorDash delivery.
Correct.
You know that Exhibit 148 shows that Mr. Crumbly went to the Meyer on Ray Road.
At what time?
1:11 p.m.
Correct.
Did you want to look at the exhibit?
Nope.
Okay. So at 1:11 p.m., Mr. Crumbly was at the Meyer on Ray Road. You don't recall any exhibits yesterday showing that Mr. Crumbly was picking up a DoorDash order around 1:11 p.m., correct?
Correct.
You know that Mr. Crumbly called his son based on Exhibit 136, which is his phone log. Mr. Crumbly called his son at 1:13 p.m.
Correct.
Would you like to look at the phone log to get the time?
That's about the right time.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And you know that Mr. Crumbly remained at the Meyer, which was the reunification point after the Oxford High School shooting. Mr. Crumbly remained there from 1:11 p.m. to 1:17 p.m.
Correct.
So Mr. Crumbly called his son from the parking lot of the Meyer, which was the reunification point, at 1:13 p.m.
Correct.
He also called his son at 1:17 p.m.,
Correct.
which is right around the same time that he left the Meyer parking lot.
That's correct.
You know that there was a phone call which was approximately less than 1 minute. And again, if you want to look at it, I can bring it
Just
to
to
you.
make, yes, please,
Sure.
thank you.
There was a phone call at approximately 1:17 p.m. 1:16 p.m. between Mr. Crumbly and his wife, which lasted less than 1 minute.
Correct.
Mr. Crumbly called his son at 1:17 p.m.
That's correct.
He left the Meijer at approximately 1:17 p.m.
That's correct.
Called his son again at 1:18 p.m.
That's correct.
and again at 1:18 p.m. There were 2 phone calls at 1:18 p.m. seconds apart.
Correct.
Neither of them were answered.
Correct.
You also know, based on your involvement in this case, that his son was already in custody at that point.
That's correct.
He'd been taken into custody at 1 o'clock.
Correct.
You know that, again, based on 136, Mr. Crumbly's wife called him after he'd left the Meijer parking lot.
At 1:19 p.m., is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly was home at approximately 1:20 p.m. based on the exhibits, if you recall.
Correct.
He was home while he was on the phone with his wife.
That's correct.
You know that during the time that he was at home, he called 911.
Correct.
He called 911 because he discovered that the Sig Sauer and the ammunition for the Sig Sauer were both missing.
Is that speculation as to why he called 911, Judge?
He said in the phone call why he called 911.
Well, I guess that's a different question. You don't know why he called 911, but you did hear him. You did hear the 911 call that.
Correct. Yes.
In that 911 call, Mr. Crumbly told the dispatcher that he saw and heard the sirens, if you remember the call.
Correct.
He said that he went to the Meijer after hearing and seeing the sirens,
Correct.
that his son was a student at Oxford High School,
That's correct.
that he heard that there was a shooting,
Correct.
that he discovered that his gun was missing,
That's correct.
that he didn't know if his son took the gun,
Correct.
and that he was freaking out.
That's correct.
After that phone call to 911, you know that James Crumbly received a phone call from law enforcement and he and his wife went to the substation in Oxford.
Correct.
They returned home around 2:30 p.m.
Correct.
There was some indication and some questioning yesterday from the prosecution about the white paper that had changed hands between James and Jennifer Crumbly at the school.
Correct.
Remember that? And the prosecution asked you if there was any indication that James Crumbly had made phone calls to doctors, hospitals, or physicians, correct?
I remember that. Correct.
To your knowledge, and if you don't know, it's okay to tell me you don't know if there was anything requiring James to make those phone calls, correct?
I know nothing about the meeting.
And you know that the meeting was at approximately, ended around, I think we said 10:53 a.m.
Correct.
And the shooting occurred at began at 12:51 p.m.
That's
It
correct.
was approximately 2 hours later. You also know that in those 2 hours, I'll withdraw that question. You testified about messages between Jennifer Crumbly and a person named Brian Malash.
Correct.
You have no idea whether
lover.
Mr.
All right, that was the reference to Jennifer Crumbly's lover, if you will, while she was having the affair on James. We'll see how they use that to their advantage or not. We'll get a break, get you back in the courtroom for more after this. Let's head back to Michigan. More testimony. The cross-examination is over, but redirect is beginning. Let's watch.
Flashing. This keeps flashing the screen.
Can you see the other screens?
I can see that fairly well, yes.
Okay.
If you can't see it, we can give you a copy of these. We're going to have someone look at that.
I have them printed if you need them.
That's all right. I can.
Okay, that's like flashing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. May I, Judge?
Go ahead.
Sir, you were asked about the shooter and his friend in that conversation that they had. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Okay, and then yesterday we had a discussion about that, specifically the amount of text in that conversation, the content of the conversation.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, From November the 30th of 2021 up until the time that the shooter was arrested October the 30th of 21 to November the 30th of 21 when he was arrested, were there any responsive texts from the friend to the shooter?
No, there was not.
Okay. In that conversation, we talked about in April how the shooter expressed to that friend that he had asked his father for help.
Correct.
And you were asked about some context, and I think your answer was that there was more context to it, you just couldn't recall. So I'm going to show it to you. So we'll go through the entire exhibit. This is Exhibit 67. This is the shooter. Like I hear people talking to me and see someone in the distance. That's April 4th of 21.
Correct.
And then right after the shooter wrote, I actually asked my dad to take the doctor yesterday, but he just gave me some pills and told me to, quote, suck it up.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then he wrote, like, it's at the point that I'm asking to go to the doctor. And then my mom laughed when I told her.
That's correct.
Okay, the next text, this is April the 5th, just after midnight, but I'm having bad insomnia. RN, what does RN mean?
Right now.
You know, okay, right now. I'm paranoid. I need
Right.
help. I was thinking I'd call 911 so I could go to the hospital.
That's correct.
Then you wrote, but then my parents would be really pissed. That's April 5th, 21 at 12:12 in the morning.
That's correct.
I'm going to ask my parents to go to the doctor's tomorrow or Tuesday again. That's April 5th, 21, 12:38 a.m.
Correct.
And then, but this time I'm going to tell them about the voices. April 5th, 21 at 12:38 a.m. And then the last text is like I am mentally and physically dying. That's April the 5th, 21 at 12:39 in the morning.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's in the same conversation.
Correct, yes.
Okay, is that the context you're referring to?
Yes, I do remember that now, yes. That's what I was referring to.
And in this conversation, you were saying, this is in August, between the shooter and his friend, you were asked about these videos. I'm going to play this one. This is August 20th at 12:30 in the morning. Okay, is that the noise you were referring to? The noise that it makes when you...
Yeah, the metal
fire?
slamming together and putting the magazine in and slamming it on the table.
Now you were asked about the horse barn, and I'm just going to use council's math here. So if that math is correct, that means 25% of all, so a quarter of the year, they were discussing meeting at the barn?
Correct.
Okay. Any indication in any of those conversations that they were taking their son with them?
No. There was not.
Now I want to ask you about Exhibit 130. And you were asking questions about November the 30th, 2021, when they were called to the school. So we talked yesterday about James when he started door dashing on November the 30th. You recall that?
Yes.
Okay. So earlier in the morning, just to get the timeline correct, we had 7:46 a.m. James Crumley dropped his son off at Oxford High School.
That's correct.
He's back at home at 8:04 a.m.
Correct.
And then he's at the barn after that.
Correct.
Okay. And we went through that Facebook conversation between James and Jennifer Crumley when she showed him this picture, Exhibit 1. This is Exhibit 128. And I'm going to go to the original one as well, which is 130. So we saw that Facebook conversation November the 30th, approximately 9:30 in the morning, when Jennifer Crumley sent this to James Crumley.
Correct.
Okay. So based upon the location history and what you were able to determine, he was at the barn at that point?
That's correct.
Okay, so he had not checked in for the day and began working that day?
Correct.
Okay. So it was not until after he saw this, and that's when he signed on to DoorDash?
Correct, after the meeting.
Okay. So you were asked, did he have any reason to stop home? But I want to talk about after he saw this, if he ever stopped home at all. Okay?
Okay?
So, November 30th, 2021, at 11 a.m., that's when he first signed on to accept his first order for DoorDash. Is that right?
That is about right, yes.
Okay. And we went through some of those maps. We went through a little bit quickly yesterday. So I want to make sure that we're on the same page. When he was accepting these orders and making deliveries, it wasn't outside of Oakland County, was it?
No, it was not.
In fact, where was it?
All local within Oxford.
Within Oxford. Okay. And he actually drove by his house at least 4 times from the point that he saw this to the point the shooting started.
That's correct.
And never once did he stop home.
No, he did not.
Now, yesterday you mentioned how you responded to the scene and you went to the mire first.
Yes.
Okay. And that's the mire that James Crumbly was at when he received the alert of the active shooting at Oxford High School.
That's correct.
Okay. And you were helping parents find their kids when you were there?
Yes.
You talked a little bit about the school buses and what you saw. How many parents were there?
Dozens of just standing around in the cold.
Were more coming when you went
Yes.
to school?
Yes, cars kept on coming.
And based upon...
All right, a little redirect there of this witness who's been on the stand for 2 days. Michael Jaafar, your thoughts on the overall, both sides using this witness to reinforce some themes. They're bringing him back to the shooting again to remind people that kids were dead and this man should be responsible.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, the day that his son shot people up, poor man was, needed the money, so he was doing DoorDash deliveries. It's kind of sad. Just so people know, Oakland County is one of the top 3 richest counties in the country, but these people lived in Pontiac. Pontiac is one of the poorest cities in the country, right? It's very, very downtrodden. So he was doing DoorDash deliveries in Oakland County locally the day that his son shot people up. I mean, it's just a tragic situation. And to any parent out there, I was giving legal advice to an engineer who has 5 kids, 4 of them under 10, and he prominently has a shotgun placed atop the mantle of his fireplace, and he was telling me, hey, I got this here in case there's an intruder, and I have this gun ready. I said, you got 4 kids under 10. You got to get rid of that thing. You can't have that in the house. And how many millions of parents have that, but they don't have to go through what these people are going through, right? Their son actually took the ultimate step and took the gun and killed other human beings. So this person is getting convicted. He's getting convicted, and this is a seminal shift in the way the law is going to be taken up in these school shootings. If you're a minor, even if you're not a minor, if you buy a gun and you have it in your house and there's somebody that takes that gun and shoots somebody, it's a seismic shift in the way this is going to go. So I think he's going to get convicted, Ted.
All right, Michael, thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Matt Johnson's picking up our coverage as we approach the top of the hour. Happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday to you. That's right. I'm in for Julia Janae, and next hour it's going to be very busy here at Court TV as we're in courtrooms across the country, including there in Tennessee, where we are in a verdict watch. Keep it right here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. And welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Matt Johnson. Thanks for being with us on this busy Friday afternoon. We are in a verdict watch this afternoon there in Tennessee, where a shooter dad trial, where James Crumbly is in court for day 2 of his trial, accused of ignoring his son's pleas for help ahead of the Oxford High School shooting that happened in 2021. Let's get you back to court now, where the next witness has just taken the stand. She's the gun store employee who sold James Crumbly that weapon that was used for that fatal shooting.
A-M-M-Y-B-A-C-K. Go ahead, prosecutor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Miss, do you work at a retail store that sells firearms?
I do.
Okay, and where is that located?
In Oxford, Michigan.
Okay. And is that store federally licensed?
Yes, it is.
So it would be referred to as an FFL, or federally firearms licensed dealer?
Yes.
And how long have you worked there?
Approximately 4 years.
What is your duties there? What are your duties there?
At this time, I am the office manager.
Okay. So with the office manager, are you familiar with the process to sell from an FFL a firearm to a customer?
Yes.
Okay. Could you walk us through the process, please?
So when a customer comes in to purchase a firearm, they have to provide us with a driver's license
Why do you ask for a driver's license?
for picture ID
Okay.
to go on record.
Did you check age as well?
Yes.
Okay. And what age are you looking for?
21 and over.
Okay.
Once I take that, I give the customer the 4473, which is the application.
Thank you. Okay.
For the firearm. Once that is filled out with their answers, I do the next check, which is the background. And once I do that, it'll come back whether it's proceed, delayed, or denied.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, if someone were to walk into the store and say, I want to purchase this firearm, you would ask for picture ID, and then that person would fill out the application for the firearm?
Yes.
And that's what you refer to as the 4473?
Yes.
Okay. And is that also referred to as a firearms transaction record?
Yes.
Okay. And then that person goes through, you take that information, and what do you do with it?
I put all their information into the computer, into the NIC system.
Okay, and that's for background purposes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then it tells you either yes or no to proceed?
Yes.
Okay. And then the 4473, that's provided through the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Yes.
Okay. There's also a trigger lock statement that's provided as well?
Yes.
And that's through Michigan State Police?
Yes.
And tell me what that is, please.
So once it's just a form stating, showing the customer that there is a trigger lock provided with the firearm that they are going to purchase. So they have to date and sign it, as
Okay.
long as we have to do it as well.
Okay. And if that form has been dated and signed and there's an indication that some kind of lock is provided, that means a lock was in fact provided for the purchase?
Yes.
Does your store also provide purchasers of handguns with a copy of the ATF Youth Handgun Safety Notice Act?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
The Youth Act just gives the information of the do's and the don'ts with firearm around minors.
Okay, and there's information posted around your store too, is that right?
I'm sorry?
There's information about that posted around your store as well?
Yes, it is.
And now, is this process that you described, is this the same process for every handgun sale in your store?
Yes.
Now, have you sold a firearm to James Crumley?
Yes.
Okay, is he in court today?
Yes, he is.
Can you point in, please describe something he's wearing?
To my right, blue shirt.
Will the record reflect identification of the defendant, Judge?
Record will reflect the report of identification of defendant James Conley.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Back, when a firearm is sold from your store, are receipts kept?
Yes.
Okay. And from your position as office manager, are you able to tell us if James Crumley purchased firearms on, or strike that. As an office manager, are you able to tell us every time that James Crumley purchased a firearm from your store?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to first direct your attention to June of 2021. Miss, you've seen receipts, pistol sales records, trigger lock statements, firearms transaction records of firearm sales from your store to James Crumley, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to, these have been admitted. It's exhibits 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36 for the record.
Okay.
And Ms. Beck, we'll go through those one by one.
Sure.
Okay. We're going to start. Can you see this? People's Exhibit 29?
Yes.
Okay. So what are we looking at right here?
That is a sales receipt.
Okay, and this is a receipt from the store that you work at as an office manager?
Yes.
Okay. And what does it indicate as far as what was sold?
A Cobra Elite Classic.
And what's the price for that?
$169.95.
Okay, so $169.95.
Yes.
And it indicates 22 LR. What's that?
The ammo.
Okay. So it's a 22 caliber
Yeah.
gun?
Yes.
And this is a 2-shot pistol, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the date of this receipt?
June 15th of 21.
And we have at the top here, underneath the date, name James Robert Crumbly.
Yes.
Okay, so that indicates that James Robert Crumbly was in your store and paid $180.15. That's the price with tax for that handgun?
Yes.
Okay. This is Exhibit 30. What do we see here?
This is a pistol sales record.
Okay. And tell us, please, again, what is a pistol sales record?
This is a record that you are given when you buy a pistol. He takes his copy that has to be dropped within 10 days of the purchase, and we keep a copy.
What do you mean dropped?
At their local sheriff's department, police department, whatever county they are.
Okay.
They live in.
Okay, so this has James Robert Crumbly's name on it. It has the serial number of the firearm, and as you said, Cobra Classic 22 caliber. It has the shot, it says 2, so that indicates 2-shot.
Yes.
Okay, and it has the barrel length on there as well.
Yes.
But it says purchase transfer date June 16th, 21. What is that?
So when Mr. Crumbly came in to purchase this firearm, he possibly got it delayed, it seems, and he had to pick up the firearm prior to him getting a proceed, which I'm assuming was the next day.
Okay, when you say delay, what does that mean?
That his background check is still under review.
Okay, and that can happen from time to time?
Yes.
So he paid for the gun on the 15th, but picked up the gun on the 16th?
Yes.
This is People's Exhibit 33. This is what? This is sales receipt?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the date of this?
June 16th, 21.
Okay, and again, the name James Robert Crumbly?
Yes.
Okay. But what's this receipt for?
It's the purchase of another firearm.
Okay. And that says Caltech P17 22LR?
Yes.
And the amount for that is $299.95?
Yes.
Okay, and then what else did he buy with that?
He bought 2 boxes of ammo.
Okay. And what was the price per each box of ammo?
$14.95.
Okay. And so he spent a grand total of $349.64 on June 16th?
Yes.
All right. So if he picked up the Classic on June 16th, and while he was in the store, or at some point that day, he also paid for this Caltech?
Yes.
This is Exhibit 34, another pistol sales record. What is this of?
This is the pistol sales records for the Caltech P17. Again, the purchase date here is 6/17/21.
Okay, so what would that indicate to you then if he paid for it on the 16th, but he received possession of it on the 17th?
That he is either delayed or his research was taking too long, so he chose to leave our store and come back at a later date or time that day to pick his gun up.
Okay, so then you actually picked it up on the 17th then?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to direct your attention now to November the 26th of 2021. On that day, do you recall selling a firearm to the defendant, Mr. Crumbly?
Yes.
This is Exhibit 37 here. What is this?
That is the 6-hour SP 2022
Okay. And
sales receipt.
this is dated November 26, 2021?
Yes.
Okay. And how much did the 6-hour cost?
$489.95.
Okay, so with tax, he paid a total of $519.35?
Yes.
All right. And what is the date of when he walked out of the store with that gun?
11/26/21.
Okay, so on that date, he paid for it and walked out the same day.
Yes.
Now, on these pistol sales records, we also have a box here that indicates serial number.
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, does every firearm have a unique serial number?
Yes, they do.
Was the defendant with anyone when he made this purchase of the 6-hour 9mm?
Yes.
And tell me about that, please.
Mr. Crumbly had another gentleman with him, a younger guy, and When I came out of the office, him and the gentleman, he was standing at the counter, the showcase.
When we say gentleman, did you come to learn who that person was?
Yes, his son.
Okay.
He was standing at the showcase, and his son was standing behind him.
Okay.
I approached a customer prior to Mr. Crumbly, and he directed me to go ahead and take care of Mr. Crumbly first, so I did. Mr. Crumbly asked to see the 6 hour, said he had had his eye on that for quite some time, and just because he is a familiar face to our store, I looked at him and said, you know the drill, I need your license. Took that, made copies while he was filling out his application.
Okay.
And once that was done, I ran him and through the NICS system for his background check. And once I finished that up, I told Mr. Crumbly, he was in research, that Chris, which is another employer, would be taking his cell over. Mr. Crumbly stated, I know it usually takes a while for my research. And him and his son walked away, went over to the holster wall. I don't recall any interaction with them once they walked away from the counter.
Okay. So before you helped them, before the defendant pointed to the 9mm SIG, did he shop around at all, or did he just point to that gun?
As I came out of the office, they were right at the showcase with that gun.
Okay.
That was the only one he picked out.
Now, for this gun, the SIG Sauer, did he pay with cash or credit card?
I did not finish the transaction, but through what I saw, observed from the office side of it.
Sure. As your role as an office manager, were you able to tell us?
Yes, it was
Okay.
cash.
Okay. And how were you able to make that determination?
Through receipt.
Okay. I'm going to show you Exhibit 39. This is a portion of a firearms transaction record. Zoomed in so you can see it. May I approach the witness? Sure. Ms. Beck, this is the, let me show this to you. This is the 3-page document. What have I just handed you?
The application?
Okay, that's the 4473?
Yes.
Okay. So we seem to be referring to the same thing as either a 4473, a firearms transaction record, or an application. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're looking at on the screen here, is that a zoomed in portion of that application?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, part of this application indicates a number of questions that the applicant has to answer yes or no. Would that be right?
Correct.
Okay, so if you can see on the screen, under box 21, there's questions A, B, C, D, and E.
Yes.
Tell us what these are.
So these, so A is asking, are you going to be the one to leave with the gun? Yes. And then the other ones, are you a felony, military, any drug, depressant, questions of that kind of sort.
Okay, so A says, are you the actual transferee/buyer of the firearms listed on this form and any continuation sheet ATF form 5300.9A? And then it has a bolded warning. What does that say?
Okay, so on the stand right there is that gun store employee that sold this gun, and we know that Ethan is there with his father James, and what the state is trying to establish is that James lied on the application. We're going to hit the pause button. We're going to have more testimony there out of Michigan when we come back. You're watching Court TV. And we have breaking news out of Tennessee. We have a verdict for defendant Robin Howington. I see the judge on the bench. Let's get you in the courtroom.
I'm going to ask that nobody be on the front row right next to the jury, please.
Jury making their way into the courtroom there in Knoxville, Tennessee. She's facing life behind bars if found convicted. She's been out on $250,000 bond with restrictions, including an ankle monitor. Remember, Ms. Howington took the stand in her own defense, trying to explain away all of the different stories that she told police and investigators after the shooting of her 5-year-old daughter, Destiny, including that an unknown intruder, that it was her daughter's father that shot her, and then she changed it to her son. And these are all things that the jury has been considering in all of this. Let's bring in our guest for this hour that's watching along with us there. Trial attorney Michelle Thomas in Silver Spring, Maryland. And Ms. Thomas, I may have to cut you off as soon as the jury gets in the room there. Everyone's standing. But what are your thoughts on this case overall?
I think we're going to see a guilty verdict. There were just so many inconsistent stories that she told, and it's hard to reconcile that, I think, in a juror's mind. How she could have blamed the father, a 2-year-old. None of it made any sense, and I think it suggests she's lying.
All right, here's the jury coming in. Let's listen.
Please. Everyone may have a seat. Waive the call for the state. For the defense. If you could pass the verdict form up here, please, Mr. Morgan. Of this jury, is that correct? Yes, sir. I understand the jury has reached a unanimous verdict as to each of the counts contained within this indictment. Is that correct? Yes, sir. If you would stand, please, sir. Ms. Howington, if you would stand in remarks as to the first count of this indictment charging first-degree felony murder, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
And that verdict is what, please?
We the jury find the defendant Robin Rebecca Howington guilty of reckless homicide.
As to the second count, alleging aggravated child neglect, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, sir.
And that verdict is what, please?
We the jury find the defendant Robin Rebecca Howington guilty of aggravated child neglect.
As to the third count, alleging aggravated child neglect, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, sir.
And that verdict is what, please?
We the jury find the defendant Robin Rebecca Howington guilty of aggravated child neglect.
As to the fourth count, alleging, initiating, or filing a false report to law enforcement, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, sir.
And that verdict is what, please?
We the jury find the defendant Robin Rebecca Howington guilty of initiating a false report to a law enforcement officer.
As to the fifth count, alleging tampering with evidence, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, sir.
And that verdict is what, please?
We the jury find the defendant Robin Rebecca Howington guilty of tampering with evidence.
And as to the sixth count, alleging attempted tampering with evidence, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, sir.
And that verdict is what, please?
We the jury find the defendant Robin Rebecca Howington guilty of attempted tampering with evidence.
If that is your verdict, if you would signify by raising your right hand, please. Let the record reflect all 12 hands are raised as either side wish for the court to poll this jury.
Yeah, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Howington, you may have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your hard work. You have concluded week 1 of your jury service. I wish I could tell you that you're done, but you're not. You've still got 1 more week of service. I know that we've got another case to start in here on Monday, so I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of you back on Monday morning when we're picking another jury. Have a very good weekend. Thank you very much for your service, and I'll see you on Monday. All rise for the jury.
All right, the jury's exiting there in Knoxville, Tennessee. Michelle Thomas, you're still with us. It appears guilty on all counts. What's your reaction?
No surprise here. Her story just didn't add up. Saying that she was trying to protect her 2-year-old, that doesn't make any sense. So she certainly was, this was an expected outcome.
All right, let's listen in.
Aggravated child neglect, count 4, filing a false police report, count 5, tampering with evidence, and count 6, attempted tampering with evidence. The court revokes your bond. You're ordered into custody. When do we need to set this for sentencing? What's 45 days?
April 22nd.
April 22nd. What day of the week is that?
That's fine, Monday.
That preceding Friday would be what, the 19th? Does Friday, April the 19th work for everyone for sentencing?
Yes, sir.
Is that good, General? Ms. Hallington, I will see you on April the 19th. The court will conduct a sentencing hearing at that time. In the interim, a pre-sentence investigation report will be prepared. Probation will be interviewing you if you wish to have your attorney present with you. When that interview is conducted, you have a right to do so. I'll see you on April the 19th.
Thank you.
Back now to Pontiac, Michigan, where James Crumbley, the father of school shooter Ethan Crumbley, is on trial with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Right now, the jury is hearing from a gun store employee who sold him the gun. Let's get you back into court right where we left off.
Or acquiring a firearm on behalf of another person. If you are not the actual transferee, buyer of the license cannot transfer the firearm to you.
And he checked yes, that it was for him.
Yes.
All right. B is, are you under indictment for any felony? You check no to that.
Right.
C, have you been convicted in any court, including military court, of a felony? You check no for that. D, are you fugitive? You also check no for that.
Correct.
E, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any other depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or controlled substance? With a warning, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law guidelines, regardless whether it's been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal, recreational purposes in the state where you reside. You check no to that.
Correct.
Okay. And this is the same form that was filled out by James Crumbley every time he made a purchase from the store?
Yes.
And he answered the questions in the same way?
Yes.
Now, you don't do any research as a office manager of a federal firearms licensed dealer to investigate if what he said in these questions are true or false. Is that right?
No.
Oh, here's the front of the form here. This is the same exhibit, Exhibit 39?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did the 6 hour come in a plastic case?
Yes, it did.
And this case itself does not have a locking mechanism, is that correct?
The case, no.
Okay. And are you able to identify if this was in fact the case sold to James Crumbley with that 6 hour?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach?
Sure.
This is Exhibit 41. It has been stipulated too. So what are we looking at on the side of this case here?
You're looking at, are we talking the bold, the black?
Right here. SN, what does SN mean?
So that's the serial number,
Okay.
which is written in box 3 on the application.
Okay.
But I can also identify it as to the stock number that I put on each box when a firearm comes in. So 21-106-20 matches up to the box.
Okay, so you can be sure that this is in fact the case that the gun was sold?
Yes.
So you mentioned that this case itself doesn't have its own locking mechanism.
No.
When you sold the gun to James Crumbley on November the 26th, did he fill out the trigger lock statement?
He did.
And did you as well?
I did.
Okay. And in that trigger lock statement, did you indicate that a lock had been provided to
Yes.
Mr. Crumbley?
Yes.
So first, I'm going to open this up because I have gloves on.
Sure.
We'll show the jury. In this case, it's provided, it has an insignia SIG on it.
Yes.
So this is provided by Sig Sauer, the manufacturer of the gun?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of lock was provided to Mr. Crumbly on November the 26th?
Cable lock?
Okay. And was that cable lock in fact provided to your store from Sig Sauer?
Yes.
So this is Exhibit 40. This is the trigger lock statement from November the 26th, 2021. And this indicates that you did in fact provide him with that?
Yes.
Okay. And it says, or a gun case or storage container that can be secured to prevent unauthorized access. So this doesn't have a lock.
Okay, right now we have to take a short break. Don't worry, you're not going to miss anything. More testimony in the school shooter dad trial when we come back. You're watching Court TV. We're following the trial against James Crumbly in Pontiac, Michigan this afternoon. He's the last of 3 to be charged in the Oxford High School shooting carried out by his son Ethan in 2021. Ethan, as you know, has already pled guilty and was sentenced to life behind bars. His mother, Jennifer, was convicted on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. But will the jury also find James guilty? Let's get you back into court now. And on the stand is the gun shop employee, Cammie Beck, who sold James the gun.
I want to show you now Exhibit 97. Exhibit 97, specifically on the right part of the screen here. What do we see here?
We see the child handguard safety, the cable lock, and the 2 clips.
And when you say the cable lock, was this cable lock and that pamphlet provided with James Crumbly when he bought the 6 hour on November the 26th?
Yes.
Okay. One moment, Your Honor. Thank you. I don't know if I asked you to or not, but this is the type of lock that was provided by Sig Sauer at the time this firearm was sold?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No, that's right.
Awesome.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Beck.
Hi.
We know that you were working on November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
You were involved in the sale of the 6 hour 9mm to James Crumbly.
Yes.
In fact, you just testified about the beginning of that sale, correct?
Yes.
That you came out of the office,
Yes.
that you approached a different customer,
Yes.
then you approached Mr. Crumbly,
Yes.
who was standing at the counter.
Yes.
You testified that Mr. Crumbly knew which firearm he wanted.
Yes.
You recall that you had some conversation with Mr. Crumbly,
I did not have a conversation with him.
standing at the counter.
I approached him and asked if he needed help.
And did you converse with him? Did you talk with him at all?
No, I did not.
You asked Mr. Crumbly which firearm he wanted to purchase? Or if he wanted to see anything?
I asked if he needed help, and he said, yes, I want to see that.
And he indicated that, you indicated that you recognized Mr. Crumbly from prior purchases, correct?
Yes.
So you knew he'd been to the store before?
Right.
He knew which handgun he wanted, and he indicated to you that it was based on prior visits, if you recall.
No. He said he had his eye on that gun for a while, so that means he could have been in the shop looking at it, could have been online looking at it. I don't know, I didn't inquire that.
You testified previously in this case?
Yes.
Specifically, you testified on February 24th of 2022?
Yes.
Do you recall your testimony on that day?
Yes.
Would it help to refresh your recollection to know exactly what you testified on that day as it relates to this question?
Sure.
Page 94. Lines 3 through 6. May I approach, Your Honor? Thank you. You can review the highlighted lines. You can look before and after if you'd like as well, and just look up when you're done reviewing it, please.
Is this what I'm saying?
Correct.
So this is saying what I just said?
May I approach?
Sure.
Thank you. My question was, you do recall, however, that he was very clear that he wanted one handgun based on his prior visits to the store. Your answer was yes.
Yes.
Well, hold on a second, Judge. Counsel didn't read the question before that.
Okay, well, I guess you can follow up.
I'll do a redirect, that's fine.
There was also some discussion, if you recall, you testified that Mr. Crumbly said, you testified on February 24th of 2022 that Mr. Crumbly said he'd had his eye on that firearm for a few days, if you recall.
He didn't say a few days, he said quite some time.
Your testimony was that he said that he had his eye on it for a few days, if you recall that testimony.
Which page, Counsel?
Yes, page 88,
Thank you.
specifically lines 3 through 4.
Thank you.
He purchased the handgun that he pointed at and looked at, correct? The
Yes.
6 hour?
Yes.
You had no reason to believe that Mr. Crumbly was buying the firearm for anybody else.
No.
In fact, you said that you called him the younger guy who was there, was standing behind him.
Yes.
Behind Mr. Crumbly, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You didn't see Mr. Crumbly having any conversations with that younger guy prior to approaching them at the counter, correct?
No.
At some point, you handed the sale off to, I think you said Chris.
Yes.
If you recall, you didn't see any conversations between Mr. Crumbly and that younger guy about the purchase of that firearm after you handed off the sale, correct?
I did not.
You didn't hear Mr. Crumbly say anything to the individual that he was standing with about buying the handgun for him?
No.
And we identified, you later learned that the individual with him was his son.
Yes.
You didn't hear or see his son say anything to Mr. Crumbly about, that's the one I want.
No.
In fact, you saw no exchange between them whatsoever.
None.
You testified that provided with the sale of firearms at your store is also an ATF handgun notice, correct?
Yes.
And in that ATF handgun notice, are you familiar with that pamphlet, the safety notice?
Yes.
We can see it in the picture, correct?
Yes.
You've reviewed that previously? Not
Yes.
necessarily in connection with
Yes.
this case, but as part of your employment?
Yes.
And in general, it's unlawful for a minor to possess a firearm. Is that correct?
Yes.
There are certain circumstances where it is not unlawful, correct?
Correct.
And specifically 18 U.S.C. 922X sub 3 sub A sub I, which is in that pamphlet, says that a minor can temporarily possess a handgun under certain conditions. Do you know
Judge,
that?
I'm just going to object to the form of the question to this witness. We do have a special agent from the ATF testifying later in this trial. I don't think this witness is equipped to testify to the content of the pamphlet, only that it was actually given.
Well, the pamphlet is an evidence.
It will be. It's not yet, but it will be.
Okay. So, well, I mean, have you seen that excerpt in that pamphlet?
I mean, not all the numbers. I mean, I couldn't recall all the.
May I ask you, Ms. Back, to recall the specific site from the...
And welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Matt Johnson. In this week for Judge Ashley Wilcott, thanks for being with us on this busy Friday afternoon. We are in Michigan this afternoon for the second of 2 historic trials for the parents of a school shooter, Ethan Crumbly. He pled guilty in October of 2022 for fatally shooting 4 of his fellow students and injuring 7 others. Prosecutors say his parents should also be held responsible after they ignored warning signs of his mental distress and even provided Ethan with the gun. Jennifer Crumbly, as you know, Ethan's mom, was found guilty last month of involuntary manslaughter. Now her husband is on trial. Let's get you back to court now, where we're hearing more testimony from the gun store employee that sold James Crumbly that murder weapon.
I'll ask you for the content then, Your Honor. I was trying to be complete in my question, but I'll just ask her if she recalls the content. You know that that pamphlet directs that a minor can temporarily possess a handgun under certain conditions, correct?
Are you familiar with that part of the pamphlet? she's.
I'm sorry, read that.
Yes, that a minor can temporarily possess a handgun under certain conditions.
Yes.
Included in that is target practice, correct?
Yes.
To your knowledge, and this is just your knowledge, I'm not asking you about anything that you may know about anything after they left the store, but while they were in the store, to your knowledge, you never saw Mr. Crumbly allow his son to possess that Sig Sauer without his permission
No.
or his supervision.
No.
Based on your knowledge of the law, and this is just your knowledge of the law, it is not illegal for Mr. Crumbly to allow his son to use that Sig Sauer or any handgun at a shooting range.
No.
Or for Mr. Crumbly's son to handle the firearm while at home if Mr. Crumbly is supervising him.
As an object to the form of the question, she's talking about, that's two different things.
Yeah, well, you can't ask her if it's legal or illegal, but you can ask her if she's familiar with what was in the pamphlet. If that's in the pamphlet, she's familiar with it, she can testify.
Correct, Your Honor. That was a continued question of based on your knowledge of the law. I'm asking her about her knowledge.
Okay, now I'm going to object to the relevance, Judge. She's an office manager for the store that sold the firearm. Asking her what her knowledge of the law is not appropriate, Judge. It's an improper question.
Well, yeah, why does her knowledge of that law, why is that relevant?
Your Honor, I would think that as somebody who's an office manager of a firearms store that she would have knowledge of firearms laws.
Okay, but she might. But why is it relevant to these proceedings? I think you have an ATF guy, right?
I can ask him as well, Judge.
Okay. Yeah, her knowledge of the pamphlet, because she reviewed it and gave it to Mr. Crumbly, would be relevant. But I don't think her knowledge of the law is relevant to these proceedings.
Thank you, Judge.
Regarding the trigger lock statement, that was, which exhibit was that? You had a few of them, but we'll look at exhibit 40. Oh, if I made it work. Exhibit 40 is the trigger lock statement. This was the one specifically from November 26th of 2021, correct?
Yes.
The trigger lock statement simply, in bold, right above purchaser dealer, in bold, that statement indicates that signing of that form just shows that that sale was done in compliance with the law, correct?
Yes.
That a cable lock or a locking box or a storage box was provided, correct?
Yes.
There's nothing on there that's an acknowledgement that the purchaser is going to use the cable lock, correct?
Correct.
There's nothing directing that the purchaser has to use the cable lock, is that correct?
Correct.
There's nothing on that form indicating that you are required to do anything as the dealer other than provide the cable lock, the trigger lock, or the case, correct?
Correct.
In fact, in November of 2021, there were no laws governing whether somebody had to use a cable lock or a case or a safe or anything like that, if you know.
Judge, relevance. There's no relevance to this proceeding.
Response?
If she knows, Your Honor.
But it's not just personal knowledge, it's relevance.
But you're asking her if she knew of any law?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, well, I do know. I'm already familiar with anything like that. She doesn't know.
Thank you. Exhibit 36, which is the firearm transaction record. I believe this was for the Caltech. You indicated on direct examination that Mr. Crumbly did not receive the firearm the same day that he purchased the firearm, the Caltech.
Correct.
And this is the firearm transaction record. This is page 2 of that form, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated on direct that you didn't know if it was delayed or if there was some other reason. It could have just been taking a long time with the federal government. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now, if the sale was delayed, there would be a box checked on this page 2, correct?
Yes.
In fact, it would be toward here, toward the bottom, where in 27C, correct?
Yes.
And this says proceed.
Yes.
So that sale was not delayed by the federal government, other than maybe it was just taking a long time. Is that fair?
Yes.
I want to go back to the purchase of the Sig Sauer 9mm. Exhibit 37 is the receipt, and I will put it up on the screen for you. This is the receipt of the Sig Sauer purchase on November 26th of 2021, correct?
Yes.
And on there we see that the firearm is listed. It says 1 Sig Sauer SP2 2022.
Yes.
There's a serial number, SN / and then it has numbers and letters.
Yes.
Has a price.
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly's contact information.
Yes.
His driver's license.
Yes.
Shows it was paid, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly's signature. The
Yes.
stock number. The
Yes.
tax amount.
Yes.
There's no ammunition listed, correct?
I'm sorry?
There's no ammunition listed, correct?
Correct.
To your knowledge, James Crumbly did not purchase ammunition with the Sig Sauer on November 26th of 2021, correct? If he had, you would have had a receipt for it at your store, correct?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Briefly, thank you. Ms. Back, if the defendant's son would have walked in with the defendant and pointed at that 9mm and said, "Hey, Dad, that's the one I want," would you have sold it to him?
No.
Okay. And in fact, in your store, there's information posted that says, "Don't buy for somebody else."
Correct.
Okay. Now that the trigger lock statement, that is to ensure that the firearm dealer provides the tool to make it safe to the buyer of the gun. Is that right?
Yes.
Whose responsibility it is to actually make the gun safe?
The buyer.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, I'm going to allow you to step down and you're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your lunches are here. Typical for the time to stop. Can I ask you to come back at 1 o'clock? Is 1 o'clock okay? Enough time? All right, please do not discuss the case with each other or anyone else. Be careful who you come to contact.
Michael, you've been following this case and the last one of Jennifer Crumbly along with us. What are you watching for?
I'm looking to see if there's any type of evidence that shows that he was not negligent. To be honest with you, Matt, I think this guy's getting convicted. This case is either going to land in a conviction or a hung jury. Why do I say that? Most likely a conviction because we already saw the playbook. We already saw this book play out, right? So we know that his wife, who had better facts than him, she got convicted. She should not have been convicted, but she was convicted. So I think he's going to be convicted because the burden of proof on negligence is very easy to overcome when a person dies, right? So we're not talking about premeditated murder. We're talking about negligence. Were you negligent? Why do I think that there's a chance that there'd be a hung jury? And I said the same thing about his wife's case. Because the word gun invokes a lot of passion. There's 12 jurors in there. I have to assume there's at least one, a good chance of there being one that sits back and says, wait a minute. So I can go to jail if I take my constitutional right and buy a gun and someone else takes that gun and kills somebody. I gotta assume there's a good chance of there being one juror in there that will take that stance, right? I predicted that in the prior case. That didn't happen. It might not happen in this case, but it could happen in this case, Matt. But that's my opinion. My opinion is he's either getting convicted for, this guy's not getting acquitted. No way he's getting acquitted because the burden of proof is so low. But there's a small chance that there could be gridlock in the jury box.
Yeah, and we just heard from the gun shop employee that sold James Crumbly that weapon that was used and gifted to his son. So, David, that cross, did that accomplish anything for the defense?
Not much here. You know, they're trying to establish that the gun was bought properly, and there was no actual evidence that it was purchased for the son. So, I mean, that's not the relevance here. The relevance is he bought this gun and he gave it to his son when there's all these red flags flying that his son had serious issues and the firearm could be used to endanger people.
Yeah, and it's also interesting when you watch these witnesses, especially like the teacher on day one of the trial, just in tears, recanting the trauma through all of this. You guys are both in that area in the country. Michael Jaafar, to you first. What's the mood there?
You know, it's very sad because this case is happening in Oakland County. Oakland County is the second richest county in the country, right? But these people lived in Pontiac within Oakland County. That's one of the poorest cities in the country, right? It's a very downtrodden city. When you drive through Pontiac, it's very downtrodden. And so the mood is, you know, people are kind of pensive and they were waiting to see what happens with the mother's case. There was a lot of emotions, a lot of passions, a lot of people saying, I should not go to jail if somebody kills someone with a gun. I followed my constitutional right. I bought the gun. I shouldn't go to jail. So this was obviously a hot button topic. But it comes down to negligence. The burden of proof on negligence is very easy to overcome when someone dies, right? If I had a loved one murdered in that school, I would say, forget the Constitution. I want somebody to go to jail, right? You can't, the person who doesn't have that type of emotional reaction by losing someone, that person has not been born yet, right? But the rational side of me thinks that, there's enough reasonable doubt to say they weren't negligent. I don't know. It's a tough one, Matt.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Let's head back to Pontiac, Michigan for day 2 in the school shooter dad trial. The entire Crumbly family, parents James and Jennifer and their son Ethan, all charged in connection to the 2021 Oxford High School shooting that left 4 students dead and 7 other people injured. Ethan pleaded guilty to the shooting and during his sentencing told the court that his parents didn't know what he was about to do.
We are all here because of me today, of what I did. My actions were because of what I chose to do. I could not stop myself, but I am the one who led to why we are here today. I do not diminish any ability to anyone who could have stopped me, of anyone of a school or parents. They did not know, and I did not tell them what I planned to do, so they are not at fault of what I've done.
Oh, but prosecutors say otherwise, saying that the parents missed warning signs before that mass shooting. Let's get you back into court now. On the stand is the crime scene investigator.
You work in law?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do and where did you work?
I worked at the city of Pontiac at the police department, and where I was a crime scene investigator there for almost 9 years.
Okay. So all told, law enforcement, you've been involved over 25 years.
It'll be 25 years on March 17th of this year.
Okay. And what is your specific role right now with the sheriff's office?
I'm a latent print supervisor, along with the crime scene supervisor for crime scenes out in the field.
Okay. And tell us specifically about crime scene supervision. What does that mean?
Well, I run a unit of, I have 6 employees, including myself, that respond to crime scenes when called upon to do an investigation out in the field for identification of evidence, documentation, preservation, and collection of evidence to be used to help figure out what happened at crime scenes.
Okay. So you said when called upon, is it every crime scene that you and your team are called out, or does it just depend on the circumstances?
Typically, for the crime scene unit to be called out, it has to be of a major crime or of a heinous nature, typically murders and maybe sexual assaults that are covered that would need to be processed at a higher level than other evidence technicians that I have on the road.
Okay. So how often would you or your team be called out, let's say, on a weekly basis?
Right now, our average is probably twice a month. So, thankfully, we don't have a murder happen every day in the county of Oakland. So, major crimes that we are doing are probably a couple a month. Sometimes it may be more, sometimes it may be less. But right now, statistically, we're about 2 times a month.
Okay. Now, prior to joining the sheriff's office, did you have the opportunity to attend an Institute of Higher Learning?
Yes, I have a forensic science degree from Michigan State University, and I've taken continuing education classes ever since then upon my employment in 1999.
So when you say continuing education, is this a field that's evolving?
Every day.
Okay. And then do you have training to evolve along with it?
Yes, there is a yearly conference that I'm a member of, the IEI, which is a conference and a huge body of people that we get together and talk about technology and how everything advances in not only latent prints but crime scene investigations, to make sure that we kind of stay up with the new technology and that we're utilizing that technology to assist in crime scene processing.
Now, how often would you say in your career you've processed a crime scene?
Oh man, I'd have to say in the thousands.
Now, when I say process a crime scene, I guess that suggests an answer there. Is there a specific process that you go through when you're reviewing the crime scene?
I mean, there's definitely a standard as far as the basics, I would say. Upon arrival to a crime scene, you're going to do an assessment, maybe what we call a walkthrough. You're going to assess what you actually have at that crime scene, trying to identify anything that may be important to that case. And there's certain documentation that can be done via notes, photographs, possibly a sketch or measurements, or as we've progressed with technology, we have a 3D scanner that we can use that to assist us in documenting our crime scenes, along with collection of evidence at a crime scene. Now, there's additional things that can be done, but it doesn't happen on every case. But those are the basics that would most likely be performed on every crime scene that we would go on.
Okay. Now, prior to undergoing that, is there a conversation that you or a member of your team would have with a detective in charge?
Absolutely. With the OIC, so that way we would know what we're kind of looking for. If we know the cause of this crime scene, if it's a homicide, if it's a stabbing, we're looking for a knife, if it's a shooting, we're looking for firearms evidence, so that we can kind of get an idea. Now, if we find something that may be different, then we would, get with that OIC or that detective and let them know of our findings on our initial walkthrough.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention now to November the 30th of 2021. Do you remember that day?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
In what capacity were you working?
It was during day shift, and so I was working in the actual laboratory that day.
Okay. And at that point, were you the crime scene supervisor?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And were you the individual on call if anything should happen that day?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So, were you called in to process the crime scene at Oxford High School November 30th, 2021?
Yes, I was.
Did you actually go to that location?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall approximately when you arrived there?
It was 2:40 in the afternoon. I received the call at 1:15, and by the time I assembled my team and grabbed our resources, it was 2:40 before I got up to the actual high school.
Okay, so that was after the scene was cleared, is that right?
At the beginning stages of being cleared.
Okay. Now, I'd like to talk to you about your specific process and your role when you arrived at Oxford High School November the 30th of 21.
Okay.
All right, so you arrived there about 2:40, you said, with your team?
Correct.
Okay. And tell us, please, what's the first thing you did when you arrived?
Waited for guidance on what was going to be done first. So the first information was that I needed to collect a firearm that was the result of what had taken place at the high school.
Okay. And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And tell us how that occurred, please.
The firearm was located within a garbage can, a small waste paper basket garbage can that was placed there by a deputy that had collected the item from the individual. So I viewed it, photographed it, and then collected it at that time.
Okay. And that firearm, after it was collected, was taken to the forensic laboratory at Yoakum County Sheriff's Office. May I approach, Judge? This has been admitted to People's 28. This is forensic laboratory report request number 6. So just to confirm, that was authored by Mr. Robert Charlton from the Sheriff's Office.
I'm gonna object. These are leading questions. He can review the exhibit and testify about the exhibit, Your Honor.
It's already been admitted.
Well, yeah, the exhibit's admitted. She was an objector to the exhibit. She was objecting to the leading question.
That's fine. Was that weapon confirmed to be the murder weapon?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And is that reflected in that report?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Now, after you collected the weapon, that's reflected in that forensic laboratory report right there. What did you do next?
Waited for the scene to be cleared. There was intel still being obtained by the investigators on scene at other sites. So it was several hours before me and my team actually got into the high school to see what I actually had or what we actually had as far as for crime scene processing.
Okay. Now, in this particular scene, at this time, November the 30th, were you made aware of the path that the shooter took throughout the high school?
I was given a general direction, and then the scene was contained to one wing of the high school.
Okay. Do you recall the number or the name of that wing?
It was the 200 wing of the high school.
And when you process a scene, do you also author a report?
Yes, I do.
May I approach the witness?
Sure.
This is Exhibit 14. Sir, take a look at that and tell me if you recognize it.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what is it that I just handed you?
This is my 5-page crime scene report that I prepared at a later date after the crime scene processing of my findings that I had documented at the crime scene on November 30th.
Okay, so that's already been admitted into evidence. That's Exhibit 14. But so the jury's aware, does that fairly accurately depict what you observed and what you processed and collected that day?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Did you obtain a map to help you with the processing of the scene?
Yes, I did. I call maybe a blueprint or a schematic of the overall diagram of the entire school.
Okay. And after you obtain that, do you make notations on that?
Yes, there was a couple of us that worked on the actual schematic of the location of the evidence and the victims within the high school.
I'm going to show you. Hey, Coach, doesn't that screen up? You may have to look at.
Yeah, we'll try to make it that it's a, so if you push that out, it kind of strobe lights.
Go ahead, turn it on.
I can see this.
You can see them? Okay, great.
If that's okay.
So I'm showing you what's been admitted as people's 15. Sir, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And how so?
This is the schematic drawing that was prepared by the school or some other agency as far as for the school layout. Once again, this is the schematic that was used to place the piece of evidence on where they were located within the school outside of classrooms and where the victims were located within the school.
Okay. These notations were made by lab personnel?
Yes, it was. There's some by myself, and there's also by Rob Charlton, who works in the firearms unit. That's also a crime scene investigator with me.
Okay, we have to take a short break.